almost like plastic. You see? Why the hell is this cheese not melting? What's going on? What are they feeding us?
Guys, I don't think chocolate's supposed to look like this. Why is it so, like, elasticy?
Almost like plastic. You see? It's like layers of... Okay, so I'm washing chicken. Why is it pulling apart like that? That's why I've been stopped eating fucking potatoes.
This is the chicken that I've talked about in a past video. If you look back where I say going Krogering, this is the very chicken that I was talking about, and I've had it in my very hands too, and it was from Tyson. They came apart just like this piece of chicken. I don't want to interrupt too much on this, and I did an edit on this video, and it didn't edit out a commercial, so I just wanted to tell you. So I apologize for the commercial that's in it, but I really don't do many of these type of things, but I kind of wanted to do this one so people would understand what I was talking about in the video of the Krogering video with the food and the burger or beef coming from 7+ days away in Austria and many other places, guys, when you go into these places, watch these burgers. I'll do a few things in here and explain as we go, but just be very careful and watch some of these. The chocolate, I've never seen anything like that. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the chicken right there and the melting of the cheese, I haven't seen it, but I've had people that I know have seen it, so I know it's truthful, but they wouldn't have told me that. But I haven't seen it myself. But the chicken, I've very much so seen myself. And the beef, when he says quality beef, here in a little bit, I'll stop it again and show you.
Thinking the potatoes is safe. What am I supposed to do? None of the food is safe.
It's foul. It's almost like, it's just like plastic, and it tastes just like plastic.
The majority of Americans don't even know they are constantly exposed to thousands of untested ingredients that are actually banned or regulated in other countries. To put it bluntly, for the last 50 years, we have been running the largest uncontrolled science experiment ever done on humanity without their consent. Why should America, the greatest country on earth, be the last developed nation to protect its people?
The health of the average American is declining. The US is the only wealthy nation in the world where life expectancy has stayed the same over the last 15 years instead of improving. And there's multiple reasons why this is the case, but it really all boils down to money and power. The goal of the US is profit first.
Chow, chow, chow. For natural nutrition, there's farm to table or bag to bowl.
Money and power. The goal of the US is profit first.
So I want you to take a look at these 3 steaks. This is Italian steak right here. This is Argentinian steak.
This is exactly where I was talking about. Next one coming up is the US. Prime. It's not prime. Trust me, it's not. And that's the point he's making here.
Here's USA, grade A, corn-fed beef. What do you see? Why don't the...
Sorry to keep stopping it, but they're going to go with corn-fed and grass-fed. As I said, I am a beef cattle farmer. Angus, especially, registered Angus. And nobody can say their beef is 100% corn or grain fed, meaning there's no way. If it was the price for corn versus them eating grass, good grass, should I say, would be astronomically expensive. You wouldn't be able to afford it. The way it should be said is cattle are grass fed until they're about 7 to 8 months old. Then they're giving grain topped off with the grass. It never goes 100% grain. One, they couldn't stand to eat just that, and you couldn't afford to feed them, because a cow eats about 35 pounds to 40 of grass a day. 3 stomachs that they have to fill up. That's why they're constantly eating, because they're constantly hungry, and a steer is constantly growing. So take it in mind and keep it in mind. This, what he's getting ready to say, grain fed versus grass fed, you feed good grasses. That's the number one key. Always. We feed Timothy, red clover, and alfalfa in the winter, but the alfalfa's mixed, because cattle can't have straight alfalfa. It will ball up in their system, plus make them very, very uncomfortable, because it's such a high-powered food. That's why you feed it to basically racehorses, whether it be standard bred or thoroughbred. That's what I sell my hay to, in the alfalfa brand, or the brome grass. That goes to straight horse farms, because they need that extra energy to run and everything. So it's a, just when he's talking about this is a bad thing to say right here to people, because you can't totally feed cattle 100% grain. It's impossible, very impossible.
These 2 steaks have that. Because they're corn-fed. These guys are grass-fed. Okay, the Argentinian from the Mendoza Valley, they got grass, they got place for pasture, okay? You know, it used to take 18 months in this country to go from birth to slaughter. Today it takes 6 weeks. This is metabolic syndrome. The cow has metabolic syndrome. We just kill the cow before it gets sick. That's happening to you.
The food industry and the healthcare industry being so closely connected should be a major red flag, and is so obvious that they feed each other. If you're eating unhealthy, then you are more prone to health problems that then feed the healthcare system. There are so many chemicals and ingredients that are allowed in the US that are completely banned in so many other countries. And the fact is that the health outcomes in other countries, the countries that are banning these ingredients, are in fact better than they are in the US. We have to see the pattern and connect the dots in order to make a change.
This is the brightness of the Canadian version, just for visibility. And this,
they're going to talk about dyes here. I mean, there's dyes in all kinds of food, your cereals. But in my video, if you go back and look at the Krogering video, I explain this with the patties and show you side by side, right in the store, of the dye in it. One of my good friends has been working for Kroger as a meat cutter here for 30 years, almost, between 25 and 30. And he knows all of these things for a fact, because he's grinded the meat, and in the last 10 years or so, they add this terrible dye in it. And when you go into your store and you see all this hamburger that just laid out, it's really, really fresh ground looking, and it looks so bright red. They put that in here because it's been on a boat for 7 days, then it's been another 7 days before it gets to the market. That's why they have to add it, because it's already gray. And when you're cooking your beef and you see all this gray water, not grease, water that's in the skillet, you pour it out, it's just like pouring out water. I would be very, very skeptical of eating that hamburger, because it's not real. It's been tampered with tremendously. It basically has zero nutritional value and it's worse for you than you would ever imagine. So when they show you this, that's what they're talking about. This dyes. Any meat you go, red meat. Not talking about chicken. I'm not talking about pork. I'm talking about red meat. When you look at red meat, and it's Kroger's 1,000 times worse than any place. Or, excuse me, Kroger's is not. Walmart is 1,000 times worse than Kroger's, what I meant to say. So, be very careful if you Walmart shoppers. They dye all of their meat. They inject even the steaks. That's a fact. Look it up, you'll see.
This is the brightness of artificial food dyes. So, of course, Kellogg and other food companies will argue children prefer this over this.
Is it me or is it fucking crazy we have to pay extra to not have poison in our food? I mean, look at this shit. Why do the same foods in America have over 10 more ingredients than the same exact thing in Europe? We are living in a poison planet. 90% of the shit in grocery stores didn't even exist 90 years ago, and neither did 90% of the diseases. Just 100 years ago, we didn't need organic labels on food because it was just called food. You're not crazy if you spend an hour in the grocery store reading every single ingredient label. You're crazy if you don't.
Glyphosate contamination in 80 to 90% of the products like Cheerios, Goldfish, Nature Valley bars. Glyphosate is produced by and distributed from China. It's also being sprayed on oats, chickpeas, almonds, potatoes, and more. You can assume that if it's not organic, it is likely contaminated with glyphosate.
What concerns are the GMO seeds?
I would say I think the biggest concern is that some of these crops already have a pesticide in them. So there's a certain crop called BT corn, and it has a BT gene. When the insects eat this corn, it makes their stomachs explode. And what I think is really interesting about this is that what it's doing is it's creating holes in the stomach lining of the bugs. And something that Americans are dealing with right now at really high rates is something called leaky gut syndrome. And that means that we're getting holes in the lining of our intestines. And what I find very strange is why did we think that this would affect insects and not affect humans?
Let's talk about the toxicity in the food in the US when compared to Europe and other countries. The US currently permits the use of 85 agricultural pesticides that are completely banned in the EU, China, and Brazil. The US sprays over 300 million pounds per year of pesticides that are deemed too dangerous to be legally used in Europe.
How I got a personal loan with a bad credit score. Guys, look at my bank account. 2 days ago, there wasn't a bad
per year of pesticides that are deemed too dangerous to be legally used in Europe. The US allows the use of potassium bromate, which is known to cause cancer, and it is used to make fluffy dough and bread. They allow BHA, BHT, preservatives that are linked to hormone disruption. Both of these are strictly banned for human consumption in the UK and the EU, Canada, and China. They allow titanium dioxide and Red 40, which requires warning labels, or are banned completely in Europe due to DNA damage and neurodevelopmental issues in children. 45% of all US tap water is contaminated with PFAs. These chemicals are linked to crashing sperm counts and testicular cancer. The USA has historically allowed PFA levels in drinking water drastically higher than the EU considers safe. We must begin to hold people accountable, including ourselves. We can't keep ignoring the fact that the US has a major problem when it comes to our food industry. At the end of the day, we have to make our own choices on what we eat. And while the environment in the US might be more challenging to overcome than in other countries, we might not be as protected, we ultimately can choose to eat better. At the same time, we can also fight for change to make sure that these products are not allowed in our food system anymore. We have to start putting more pressure on these companies in order to make our food healthier and more safe. They have the money and they have the power, but only if we give it to them.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 100 years ago, Americans were eating a half a pound of sugar per person per year. Today, 100 years later, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Americans are eating 157 pounds of sugar per person per year, or now we're eating a half a pound a day. So in 100 years, we've gone from a half pound of sugar per...
This is crazy. And you were feeding our children this. No wonder the things happening and are feeding ourselves this and the sugar we intake a day. No wonder everybody is so overweight, man. And the chemicals. One she left out was paraquat, which was sued in, I think, for several billions of dollars, and people got compensated for paraquat. It's in our food as well, folks. Sad to say, but it is. And these sugars, I've picked up a bottle of Mountain Dew and turned it upside down and seen the sugar fall that was settlement in the bottom of it. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Person per year to a half a pound of sugar per person per day. That plus the deficiency of these nutrients in our food has resulted in this epidemic of diabetes. Do you think our genetics has changed that much? I don't think so.
The majority of people get the majority of their calories in the United States from ultra processed foods. The US also adds an insane amount of sugar in the form of just white sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and a variety of other sugar additives to food, and along with so many other ingredients to make food, to make you more addicted to food. And all of this starts really young. If you look at school lunches in school, they're pretty processed and not nutritious and gross, especially when you compare them to what other countries are feeding their students. And all the advertisements on TV for all these sugary snacks and candies and just ultra processed food. Children are really being bombarded with all of this unhealthy stuff. And developmentally, those habits are formed very early. More children than ever are being diagnosed with diabetes. It was almost unheard of 50 years ago for a child to have type 2 diabetes. And today, a huge percentage of children are overweight.
Plants cannot manufacture minerals. The only minerals that you find in plants are those that are in the soil in which they're grown. Plants will take up minerals out of the soil. And the reason why we're in trouble in America is for the last 100 years, we've used a simple fertilizer, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, because it gives the farmer the maximum yield in terms of tons and bushels per acre. Farmers are paid for tons and bushels. Nobody gives a farmer any type of tax incentive to make sure that you get all 60 essential minerals. It's your responsibility. Farmers only generate tons and bushels per acre. We know that it only takes 5 to 10 years to deplete the nutritional minerals out of our farm soils. And we've been using NPK for 100 years. So, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that there's a deficit there. U.S. Senate Document 264 says there's no longer any nutritional minerals left in our farm and range soils. And as a result, the crops that are grown there are minerally deficient. As a result, the animals and people who eat these minerally deficient crops get mineral deficiency diseases, and the only way to prevent and cure them is with mineral supplementation. In 1936, 60 years ago, this information was known. This is not yesterday's news. It's 60 years old.
Soil depletion is a major issue, but there are ways to restore the soil, and regenerative farming is one way to do that. And we can make a change.
And what she's getting ready to talk about here is soil regeneration, is what we do every single year. Any farmer that's a good farmer and that wants to have a good crop, a good healthy crop, you have to do what they call resting period. If I'm using this certain plot of land over here this year, it's okay to use it a couple years or 3 years maybe in a row for food or something you're going to have for food. But after 2 or 3 seasons of using that, you need to let it rest for 2 or 3 seasons. So go over here to another area that you've been letting rest and turn it over in the spring and use it for a couple or 3 years and let that do the same thing as the other area was. That way it lets the ground rest and build up nutrients back in it from the natural rains, the changing of seasons, and all of that great things that our earth was made to do. That these are things that was made naturally to do, not what man made, but what was already made here. So that's what they're going to talk about here. But their soil regeneration is very, very important to any farmer or to any farmland.
By supporting local farmers, growing our own food, and just becoming more aware of the issue. Americans have been taught to rely on convenience foods. We have lost the ability to cook, to grow our own food just within a couple of generations. The boomer generation was sold the idea that convenience was better. There is so much lost knowledge when it comes to just the very basic idea of cooking food and growing food and understanding what is healthy. And we have been so disconnected from food and health that we are now relying on these big corporations in order to feed us. We have to go to the grocery store to get our food, and small scale grocery stores and farmers markets are disappearing. And so we're relying on these corporations to feed us. And that is a pretty dangerous situation to put yourself in, because there are very few other options. At the same time, the food industry is beginning to buy up a lot of the land in the US, and the number of small farmers is continuing to decrease. And that means fewer people are able to grow their own food. People are moving into cities and off of rural property. And when people don't have access to resources, when they don't have access to land, then they have lost the ability to grow their own food and rely more and more on these big corporations. I'd love to know in the comments what your thoughts are on the declining health of Americans. What do you think is the biggest issue, and what can be done about it?
What is Spectrum Internet? It's
Folks, that was a very important statement there. I will continue on with the video pertaining about the rest of this. I caught this today on my phone, and I wanted to do this before I got home, and because I didn't have time, if I'd have time to do this on my home computer. So but I wanted to just kind of put this out there before the weekend to have somebody to be able to look at it and see what you think of it. And but I will do a video right in behind this about this as well.